Good morning, everyone. Good evening, everyone. I hope what you have done today, or when you start a day, that you are going to start off with an amazing day and that you will unwrap your beautiful day and say, what value can I bring for myself? And what value can I bring for somebody else? And tonight, when you go to bed, are you able to tick off, even if you do a air tick or a air head tick, and you say, did I leave my sparkle in somebody's heart and in memory? So this week, we're going to have a beautiful session. And the one thing that my grandson asked me this morning, he said, Alma, you look so beautiful. I said, oh, thank you so much, my beautiful grandson. And he looked at me like this. He said, but Alma, you always look beautiful. And I said, yes, my beautiful one. I have my beautiful dress and my pearls on and my hat for our show. And this weekend, I told him we were sitting in front of Pack and Save, and people were going in there like they didn't even have shoes. Their clothing looked terrible, terrible. And I said to him, you know, my grandson, people judge you how you look. Before they even know your heart, they judge you. And then they don't want to speak to you, so they cannot learn how beautiful your heart is. But if you look yourself in the mirror and you look beautiful for yourself, dressed beautifully, then people will notice you and you will attract more people. Because if you have that self-confidence, yes, I am looking beautiful. I don't have holes. He said to me, oh my, look, that one gentleman has holes in his jean. I said to him, now I think that gentleman pay a lot of money to get that holes. But you have to look beautiful. So today we're going to talk all about inner freedom. So ladies and gentlemen, are you free? Are you free to love yourself unconditionally? Or is there everywhere in your heart, everywhere in your mind, spots of other things that doesn't serve you anymore? Things that you need to let go, let God. So I would love to do a beautiful meditation with you to let go of things that doesn't serve you anymore. If you're ready, I am ready. You're welcome to do a close or open eye exercise, and then you just breathe, beautiful in breaths. And I want you to imagine the most beautiful place that you can go and sit. And just, it's in the forest, but the most beautiful place with a small stream and lots of trees and grass and flowers. Do you have a space that you can go and sit? So come along on this journey of letting go, let God. Are you ready? Start breathing beautiful in breaths and slowly out. You are sitting next to a beautiful water stream. Everywhere there is birds that's having a party in the trees. The sun is beaming on you. You feel like you just want to fly. And you see what you can see. And you hear what you can hear. And you feel what you can feel. Just to the left of you, you see the most beautiful red backpack. As you pick it up, you see it's closed. You unzip it. There's nothing inside, but there's a beautiful velvet inner on the inside. Ladies and gentlemen, It's now time for you to pack all the things that doesn't serve you in this beautiful backpack. All the worries, all the things that you cannot change, put it in a backpack. The people that you need to forgive, and yourself to forgive yourself. You can also offload from your shoulders and put it into the backpack. Yes, it doesn't serve you anymore. Let it go. Let it go. Take a deep breath in and sigh it out. Close the backpack and put it on your back. Now we're going to go through all those beautiful trees, and it's a forest quite dense, and we're going to take this beautiful backpack on your back to a safe space. A safe space. As you go through the trees, you will see there's a small opening in front of you. Oh, wow. When you step out in this beautiful opening, there's an English cottage surrounded by beautiful roses. All the colors, the bees, the butterflies. See what you can see, hear what you can hear, and feel what you can feel. As you step to the door, you open the door of the cottage, and it almost takes your breath away. Inside, it's a fireplace, and the room is lit in orange, yellow, and red. And there's a beautiful mahogany table in the room. As you approach the table, you turn around and put the backpack on the beautiful table. You open the zip, and for a long you look inside. That all is okay. You're going to leave it here, because today, when you step out of this beautiful cottage, the worries, all the things that is holding you back is going to be staying here in this beautiful cottage with this beautiful fireplace. Close the zip and you turn around and go to the door. For the last time, before you close the door, you look at this beautiful red backpack in this beautiful room on this beautiful table, and you give yourself a smile of relief, a smile of knowing that you are worth it, that you are enough, that you are loved, and that you are amazing. As you close the door, you step through the roses and you near the trees, and you almost run through the trees until the spot that you have picked up the backpack. And you see what you can see, and you feel what you can feel, and you hear the birds are having a party. I would love you to take a deep breath in and release. Another one in, release. I would love you to open your eyes, put your fingers together, wiggle your shoulders, and feel the lightness of letting go. So I am going to bring up my first guest. Hello, my beautiful Yaki. I
Hello,
met
Sam.
I met Yaki 21 years ago on a bridge between two buildings, and it was amazing. And forever, I know Yaki, and I also visit your beautiful place, Yaki. You are incredible. And I just want to say, last year, you come and inspire us on the Diamond Beauty so many times. But this one that you're going to tell us, for me, the strength, the courage that you have showed me that day made me even love you more than what you ever can think. You are one of the strongest women I know. And you, for me, epitomize the love that you have for yourself. Let go to for my so many ladies on the group, on a Diamond Beauties Forever group, listen to your story and you healed them. You made it better for them. So, my beautiful Yaki, I am over the moon for you to be here.
Thanks, Annette, and thanks for the opportunity to be here. Good evening, good morning to everyone that's listening, that's watching the show. As Annette already introduced me, I'm Yaki the Haas. I'm the proud mother of three beautiful daughters and grandmother, as Annette mentioned. I have three beautiful granddaughters as well. Without them and my husband, my life would have been so much poorer.
Thank you, Yaki. So, you have an incredible story that you would like to share with us? You can go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanit, and thanks for the opportunity. Here's my story. On a Thursday evening, 17 March of 2005, it started off as a normal evening for us as a family. My husband and I were busy finalizing our preparations for the camping weekend. We usually pack the day before, enabling us to leave on a Friday when everyone is home to ensure we get the most out of the weekend. My youngest daughter, aged 13 at that time, returned from choir practice just after 8 a.m. The middle daughter, she was 16, and my mother, at that stage 79 years of age, were somewhere busy in the house. My eldest was visiting a friend and not home. Around 9 a.m., my husband and I paused for a while, sitting in our bedroom, which had its own entrance to the parking yard outside. All the gates were locked. We were always very cautious. And the fence, we had a fence around the house of about 2 meters high. The next moment, three armed perpetrators appeared in the entrance, yelling at us to be quiet. Two of them forced us down to the floor, pulling cables out of the wall, and they tied us up. The one went looking for the two girls and my mum. They must have been watching us, as they knew who was home. They brought my mum to the room, and they let her sit down in a chair behind us. She did move with difficulty and used a walker to get around. The one man kept guard of us, and he frequently during the whole episode touched me indecently. My poor mum had to watch. He kept on asking me when I complained that the wires were cutting into my flesh, how am I going to repay him? My husband was tied up so tight that he had marks around his wrists and ankles for a couple of months after the incident. They ransacked the house, drinking alcohol, turning everything upside down. It kept on for 4 to 5 hours. The two girls had to accompany them the entire time. We could hear them moving, but we didn't know what they were doing. The man kept guarding us all the time, frequently touching me and yelling at my husband that he would shoot him. It got quiet. And I think in the back of my mind, I realized what they were busy with. I recall that I whispered to my husband, "What are they doing?" He just whispered back that I must be quiet and relaxed. At that moment, I got very quiet and very calm, and I just knew that God was with us. We always had bread delivered in the early morning hours, and the delivery was at that moment at the gate. There was a bin that the delivery man dropped the bread in, but there was nothing on the outside to indicate to him that anything was wrong or out of the ordinary inside of the house. The man that kept guard rushed upstairs, and then all three of them came downstairs. It was round about 3:30 in the morning, and they must have realized that their time is getting less. My middle daughter did mention afterwards that they asked her if she can drive a car. Luckily, she kept calm and she said no. They asked us for our car keys, but we could only manage to find mine. They took all our mobiles and they left with my car. After they left, the two girls who were upstairs at that stage came down, and as my middle daughter bent down to untie us, she just said to me, "Mum, we've been raped." My biggest fear came true, and I couldn't do anything to save my girls from any woman's biggest nightmare. We contacted the neighbors who contacted the police, and within a couple of minutes, the police were there. One specific woman, which I still believe was sent by God to us, was so good. She let my youngest daughter talk and talk for almost 2 to 3 hours. We later heard a separate police team caught the three perpetrators at a nearby train station. They found most of the stolen items, and the perpetrators couldn't answer where they got the items from or say anything about the car. The police scanned the license disc, phoned the owner of the car. I bought this car from one of my previous managers just before the incident, and the car was still registered in his name. He attempted to contact us, but to no avail, because the telephone was pulled out of the wall and all our mobiles were taken along. The police then started to make the links. My manager asked a colleague to visit us, but did warn her to keep the distance if anything looks like if it's out of the ordinary. No need to mention that she did find us, devastated, and the police at our house. The first thing that she asked me is what could the company do for us? And all that I wanted at that stage was counseling for us, especially for my daughters. It was a service that the company provided to us for free in cases of personal trauma. The police assisted us. They took us to the district doctor, and the girls to be examined and DNA tests to be run. I was so proud of my two girls. They were forced to take a shower after being raped, but they made sure not to destroy any evidence. On our way to the police laboratories, our wellness manager called me and asked me if there was a specific trauma counselor that I prefer. I did ask for a specific one. He was off duty, but after being reached out, he gave up his whole weekend to support us. On our return from the police, he was already there waiting for us. He spoke to the girls, their friends, my husband, myself, all our family members and friends. There were so many people sent to us on that specific day, and they were all traumatized, but they were there to support us. And also, they were there on our journey to forgiveness. One of the perpetrators got away, the other two were kept in prison. The case took its course, and on 14 February 2006, the one perpetrator escaped. However, the other one appeared in court and he was found guilty and sentenced to lifetime imprisonment. That at least brought some closure, especially after all we went through. The perpetrators almost had more rights than us, refusing to attend the recognition parades, which we could not do as they wore hats during the recognition parade when it eventually happened after 3 attempts. And we were not allowed to ask them to remove their hats. The fact that we as a family recalled and replayed the incident in the court the same way, consistently testifying the same message, made it easy for the judge to sentence him. My middle daughter had the opportunity to look him in the eye and say to him, "You are the one who raped me." The long road to forgiveness then started. I guessed for the girls and I, it was a bit easier. We standed together and we decided from the onset we will not allow this act of cruelness to define us. We were headstrong about it, and this was definitely laid in our hearts by the counselor. It was not easy, I must admit, especially when the youngest got so sick from the antiretroviral meds that I often did not know what to do, and we found ourselves often crying on the bathroom floor. She got physically sick from the medicine. The three of us went for counseling numerous sessions, and the counselor was exceptionally good with the girls, always highlighting the fact that we can only continue with our lives if we forgive. They engaged so much with the counselor and they had such a strong bond with him that even after that they were healed, they still visited him. What did assist is that he also had two teenage girls and he could relate with my two daughters. I struggled a lot and I often asked myself, why not me? Then I came to the realization over time that if I was also raped, and I know I was saved when the bread was delivered, I might have been more internally focused and would have not been there to support my daughters. Exactly a year after the incident, my husband was invited to a weekend to go away. He did not want to go, but I reminded him that we are on our forgiveness journey and that we made a decision to continue with our lives and not be defined by the act of inhumanity that was done to us. Only the youngest and I were home. We were at that stage still busy building our new house, but we also decided to stay in the old house because it was part of our whole forgiveness journey. No need to say that we did not sleep well that night, but the following morning, when we woke up, there was a white dove at the entrance of the door, the same door the perpetrators came in a year back. The dove was around the entire day, often so close that I could reach down and touch it. It dawned on me. This was God's sign that He is with us, and He always was. His message was clear. You will not be forgiven of your transgressions unless you are willing to forgive others for their transgressions. I had to forgive unconditionally and then also realized that the day in court, when the convicted was sentenced, there was an old man sitting and sobbing. Must have been the convicted's dad, and I felt so sorry for him. No one can ever predict what your children will do when they are grown up. God always said to us that He will never leave us, He will never forsake us. He promised us that He will always be there for us. He never said that bad things will not happen to us, but we know and we have the reassurance that He will always there be for us whenever we need Him. Looking back, I realized that I was prepared long before the incident. I used to travel extensively and might not have been home if I did not change jobs. The month before the incident, we had a robbery at work, and that is how and when I met the counselor. After the attack, I was given the opportunity to move to a work environment where I could manage my own time, assisting my family whenever needed. My mom also moved away after the attack to stay with one of my sisters, and she developed Alzheimer's over time. That was another experience, and I had to forgive them once again. My eldest was guilt ridden as she was not there for her sisters, or so she believed. Once again, an angel reached out to us in the form of a family counselor who assisted her with her own agony and anger. 7 years after the attack, the night before the anniversary, my husband said to me, "Tonight, or tomorrow night, it is 7 years ago." That's the first time that he could talk to me about the incident without any anger, and I realized that he also healed. We spoke about forgiveness. I know how difficult it must have been for him. He could not do what dads are supposed to do to protect their families. That opportunity was taken from him when he was tied up and a gun held against his head. We are a happy family. We get together at least every 6 weeks. It is a madhouse. We laugh, we fight, we celebrate, we eat, we have fun. The last thing that I want to mention, since March 2006, a year after the attack, after I found the white dove on my doorstep, whenever I doubt myself, whenever I struggle with life, I will find a little white feather in the most surprising, out of the ordinary places. And if not a white feather, a 10 cents or a 20-cent piece, representing a penny, which are all signs of my God sent angel being with me. I want to end with the following. No matter what your circumstances, no matter what happened to you, forgive. Forgive the people who do or did you wrong. Forgive yourself. Make the most of every opportunity. Make the best of life. To my daughters, I congratulate you for the beautiful young woman you became. And to my husband, thank you for being part of my life for almost 40 years. You are my better half. Thank you all for listening to me. And I wish that this message and this testimony of mine regarding my road of forgiveness and what I had to do to forgive them will assist you with your own forgiveness. As Sanette mentioned, let go and let God. Thank you, Sanette, once again for this opportunity.
Wow, thank you so much, Yaki. It was beautiful. Your story is beautiful. The courage that you have and your family to go through that, and you can tell the story. I want to say thank you for honoring us with your story. I know there's a lot of courage and bravery, even delivering it. And it's quite late in South Africa. Yaki is in South Africa. And also in South Africa, there's a lot of load shedding. So Yaki is actually going to go and say goodbye to us because their load shedding will start in soon. And I just want to say, Yaki, thank you so much for your beautifulness. You're amazing.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you, everyone.
Bye bye, Yaki.
Bye, everyone.
Oh, wow. It was an incredible story. My next guest is amazing. Well, I met you with the Speaker Speak Live. And when I learned about your story, it was like incredible. And like I mentioned in my write up for the show, when you speak about your the investigations you are doing with the World War II prisoners and the way that they have imparted knowledge and wise counseling, that's the right word I was searching for. Your face just changed and you actually look for me like an angel. I never said that to you, but that is exactly what it is. So first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then and before you go, just Yaki, how amazing was his story?
Oh my, I had tears, and I wish I could have given her something, besides love. That's all I could give her. But I mean, you can hear it in my voice. I was really impacted by what happened to her and her family. Wouldn't wish that on any person, but I'm so grateful that they got through it and are happy and healthy and loving again. That's a wonderful gift.
True. And when she came and told it for the Diamond Beauties last year, there's so many ladies that have contacted her and contacted me and said, Sanit, thank you so much for the Power Hour. Thank you for bringing us stories that change our lives. So for me, it was just incredible. So Val, please tell us a little bit about yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunit. In 1993, I was at my grandmother's funeral. We were at my parents' home, and my father was dying at the time. And my uncle and his wife, who was my mother's oldest sister, were at the house. And he kept talking about wanting to go back to a prison camp he'd been interned in during World War II. I kind of got tired of hearing talk about it. And I said, well, why don't you go? And he said, I want someone to do the marketing materials because I can't do it and I want to take a large group back. And I said, I'll do that. And he said, for your service, you will get a free trip to Europe. Now, I don't know about any of you, but I will never refuse a free trip to Europe. And so we sent out 3,000 letters to POWs. And I kept getting phone calls from these people asking about the trip and what I knew. And with almost every one of them, they left me with a story. And I said to my uncle, has anyone ever recorded these men's stories? It's just incredible. And he said, I don't think so. And I said, well, I'm going to do it. And it was in 1994, excuse me, I did my first oral history, and I have now almost 200 oral histories and the largest collection of Radio Tokyo letters in the United States. They're from families of Pacific POWs. And I continue to research. I'm right now in the middle of writing a book, which my goal is to have it finished and to a publisher at the end of the year. And so that's where my life went from being a graphic designer, a mother of two, and a wife of a wonderful husband. I kind of took a detour that has made such a difference in my life that I can only share the stories and hope they have impact on other people.
Wow, incredible and incredible. And the first time I've heard you had a 10 minutes time to speak to tell us your signatures. This is a snippet of your signature.
Yeah.
But can you remember that day, Val? Everybody didn't want you to stop. They wanted to continue with your, well, it was a 45 minutes, but you did only 10 minutes and it was incredible. So thank you so much for telling us that, how it started. But you actually want to tell us a story of a specific person. Please go ahead.
I will. I first want to talk to you about how your adversity can be a benefit to your life. All those difficulties and those things that you think, oh, I'll never get over. I'm angry. I'm this, I'm that. And then if you understand the law of polarity, if there's a positive, there's a negative. If there's a negative, there is always an opposite to how you feel. And I think this man's story really illustrates how that polarity and his decisions in his life made a difference. So I'm going to give you sort of a historical context about this gentleman, and I would like you to really slip into his shoes and imagine what he's been through. Um, I don't think we need to say it's worse or better than anyone else, but certainly it gives you pause and allows you to compare your own life and see how he turned his around. Len Robinson's strength, his determination, and his will really got him through being a prisoner of the Japanese, both in the Philippines and in Japan. He was on guard duty on December 8th, 1941. It was the same day that the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, except that he was across the international date line. He had just come in from guard duty. He had been out since 4 o'clock in the morning. It was now 6, and he was going to rest for a while. And his buddies that he served with that night were going to take him to breakfast. They were going to leave because they had to leave where they were at Clark Field and go somewhere else. He was a draftee, and in 3 weeks, he was supposed to return to the mainland to finish out his story, his service. Unfortunately, he heard about the attack on Pearl Harbor, and because he was a draftee, he knew he was going to have to serve for the duration of the war. But little did he know his service was going to start, and it was going to get much, much better. His war was going to break wide open in the next few hours. It's interesting that in Pearl Harbor, it was December 7th, but for him, it was December 8th because he was across the international date line. Pretty soon, while he was at Clark Field, his men had tried to wake him and they took off without him in a truck. And 54 Japanese bombers came overhead. They started dropping bombs. The first one hit the men in the truck and killed them immediately. It was horrible. Bombs dropped. There was men jumped into trenches. The airplanes all around them were on fire. The bombing, the pain, the suffering, and people just in such disarray trying to figure out what to do because the attack was so severe at Clark Field. He was with the other soldiers who fought all their way back to Bataan. At that time, and in January 7th, 1942, there were 85,000 American and Filipino prisoners and thousands of civilians who retreated to the Bataan Peninsula. Unfortunately for all of them, those men had been serving for a long time. They had been starving. They had very poor equipment because it was World War I vintage. So the machinery, the ammunition, all of that really failed them. They had very little to eat. They had all kinds of problems. There on the Bataan Peninsula, everyone there, all of the Americans, all of the Japanese had 2 diseases. Dysentery, malaria, dengue fever, and diseases from malnutrition. They fought and they fought and they fought. And finally, on April 9th, 1942, all those men, the battling bastards of Bataan, is what they called themselves, they surrendered. Now, this was a horrible thing because the Japanese believed in a samurai code called Bushido. And Bushido meant that you felt that it was more important to die than to surrender. So when our men, when the Filipinos, when the Americans surrender, they were less than dogs. They brutalized them, beheaded them, they executed them, they ran over them with captured trucks and made them like roadkill on the roads. If they tried to get water out of the ditch, they immediately murdered them. And they started what is now known as one of the most horrific events during World War II, the Bataan Death March. They marched for 6 to 10 days, 66 miles north to San Fernando. One night, Len was in a corral surrounded by wire, and the guards were all protecting the outside. And he was there overnight, and then in the morning they would start marching again. Unfortunately, someone stole his shoes, and he knew he couldn't march, and so he stayed, and he stayed, and the men marched out, and the men marched out. Finally, he found his shoes hidden, and he went to the gate. All the men were gone, and he knew the Japanese were going to take it out on him that he was still there. So he stood there at the gate waiting for them to beat him or something. He really didn't know. And then all of a sudden, a truck pulls up full of U.S. officers. They put him aboard and they drive him to the end of the march. He didn't have to walk any further. What a gift to him. I don't know if he realized it at the time. But when many of the men were coming into San Fernando, they shoved them, as many as they can in these oven-like steel rail cars, and they moved them 30 miles north. Once they got there, they were allowed to leave the rail cars, and they made their march another 8 miles. Now listen and think about, they hadn't been eating, they hadn't been drinking, they were in severe heat, and they were just in really, really sad shape. So they marched them an additional 8 miles to Camp O'Donnell. It was nothing more than a big hillside with barbed wire all the way around. There were no barracks, there was no water, no food, and nowhere to, At any rate, the men were so sick, many of them with just dysentery. They were laying there. The feces were running out of their legs, pant legs, and they were laying in their own excrement. Len came into that and he thought, I've got to get away. He didn't want to be sick. And the smell, the stench was so bad. So he walked up near the edge of the barbed wire, went over on the east side. He laid down and stuck his feet outside of the wire. For 54 days, they were there. And the loss of life was so horrific. I mean, they saw their friends and people that they cared about just die. It wasn't until those 54 days were over with that they started moving groups of men to a new prison camp called Camp Cabanatuan. Len said it was really much, much better, although much of it was limited, but they had barracks in low supply. There was some food, there was some water. They had, they were slave laborers there, and still the cruelty persisted, but it was still a little bit better. For 24 months, he labored there. And then the Japanese needed laborers all over the territories that they had invaded. They called them hell ships, aptly called because they were just dungeons, filthy, dirty, horrible dungeons in the holds of these ships that moved 156,000 POWs across the world so that they had slave labor for what they needed. Some of the men went crazy and they killed them simply because they were protecting their own life, because the guards would just shoot down in the holes of the trucks. Some of them became cannibals. They were so hungry. Others slit their wrists and drank their own blood because of their thirst. Len survived that. He wasn't in a hold for weeks and months and thousands of miles, but he did spend 15 days in a hell ship and was then in Japan, taken up the west side of their country on Honshu to a place called Nagata. It was a port right on the Sea of Japan. There he was a stevedore. He unloaded freight, and he took pig iron from a cart, put it on the ground, and then put it in the rail cars. And that was their job. The first winter they were there, they had 25 to 30 feet of snow. Can you imagine 25 to 30 feet of snow? And they required them all to work outdoors. So they slept in their clothing because they were wet, trying to dry it overnight so they could then again go outside. Len was very, very lucky because he went to the University of Colorado in the US and he studied efficiency. And he had an idea, plus using his mind kept him healthy, because when you're starving, your brain really doesn't work. It doesn't have the nourishment to stay sane. It's easy for people to lose it and to really just come out of themselves. At any rate, he asked a woman who was one of the drivers of the carts to drive up right next to the rail cart, or the railroad, the cart. Anyway, from the cart, he took the pig iron and put it in the rail cart. And she kept coming around, and she was getting paid more. So all of the drivers decided that was a good thing. Well, then the guards were happy because everybody thought they were doing a great job. And the prisoners, they decided, needed more food. So they gave them a sack of beans to put in their mess, which was their kitchen. And they were able to eat more. They then started supplying them with another cup of soup. And the men were getting healthier and healthier. They had reserves and stores within them. And so they were very careful about working too hard and too much, because they didn't want to show how well they were doing, because then the guards would expect more and more from them. It would be on the 14th of August of 1945. All these men went out to work that day, and the guards dismissed them. They told them the war was over with. They looked around and they really didn't know how to react. I mean, they didn't even know how to feel, because what do? We're free? I mean, the guards disappeared. The entire town or the city, it was 100 and some thousand people. They all disappeared. And then on August 29th, 1945, two B-29 bombers, or two B-29 aircraft, came over and dropped 55-gallon drums of food. That allowed the prisoners to have 6 meals a day. They couldn't eat much. They couldn't eat, and it couldn't be too rich, because it would kill them. And so they just had to eat small meals and smalls, but they started gaining weight. And finally, on September 5th, 1945, they loaded the prisoners on rail cars. They were inside, they weren't just on a rail car, and they were taken to Tokyo. Len said when he got there, he couldn't believe it. The city had been blown to pieces. There was nothing left. He knew that he had to do something for himself. And he decided he would close the book on that period of his life. He decided that he would unconditionally forgive all of his captors. He knew in his heart that if he didn't, he would have mental illness. And so he did. When he left Tokyo to return to the United States, his anger and his hate was love and forgiveness. He used the law of polarity and didn't even know what it was. But because his strength in a higher power was so great, he was able to forgive. He said to me, I can teach anyone how to forgive themselves or to help someone else forgive others. He said, first of all, you have to turn your life over to a higher power. You have to become comfortable with your story. Not all of the gory details, but certainly be comfortable enough that you can tell someone and be okay with it. I mean, I think Yaki did that perfectly when she spoke of what happened to them. And then he said, you must forgive those that have harmed you, not for them, but for you. And so today we're talking about forgiveness, and we're talking about the law of polarity. And I think they are both sort of one in the same thing. I think many of us sort of live in a prison camp of our own making, where we hide away those adversities and those difficult things that happen to us. And we don't pull them out of that prison camp that we put ourselves in and look at them and say, okay, this person hurt me. Now, how do I forgive them? I am angry now. So how can I be loving? And I think really we need to look at ourselves and look at others and our own lives to change how we feel about those things that have caused us pain, hurt us, and turn it into those golden nuggets where we can once again love and thrive. Sunit, it's been a wonderful day.
Wow, incredible. Your story, Lane's story, is amazing. And I know there is much more to the story. There is a whole book actually for Len. You can write a whole book about Len and his story. It's
Can I just
amazing.
can I
Yes.
just tell you one more thing about him?
Yes.
I went to his home, and when he came, he got home from church, and when he came, he was walking with a cane, and he was kind of bent over, and he just he just looked like an elderly man, and he was struggling. And we went into his house. He went up the stairs and into his house, and we're talking. And about an hour, hour and a half, maybe 2 hours into the oral history, all of a sudden I'm looking at him and his face is turning younger and younger and younger. And he's telling me, I mean, pretty distinct details. And all of a sudden he jumps out of his chair and he runs down the hall and he brings back memorabilia he wanted to show me. And it just proved to me, and I've got pictures of him as an old man and as a young man, that because of his forgiveness and talking about it and telling his story, everything changed in his face. Everything that had happened to him just sort of melted away, and he became this young man again. I didn't want to leave. And then he said to me, you've got a 2-hour drive. You better get out of here. And I said, well, it's only 5 o'clock. He said, no, it's 7 at night. I'd been there for 4 or 5 hours and I had to go. So it was so
Wow.
incredible that you can be so engaged in a person's story. But what happens is when you listen to them in that way, I've got earphones and all of that, you then take on their story, not in a way that hurts you, but in a way that you learn and you grow, and you know that you've given him something and you have received probably 3 times as much in return.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much, Val, for your beautiful heart to accept those stories and then telling it us for us. Thank you for your book. I know whatever you do, it's from God, and that you will able to give us their stories and their hearts, because all of us have the same desires. We all wanted to be loved. We all wanted to look after our family, and we all want to be happy. So I have a little bit of a small snippet of my song I would love to play for us, because ultimately my goal is to make sure that everybody know that they are amazing, that they are beautiful, that they are loved, and that they are enough. So just a small snippet before we say goodbye. Here we go.
Walking on sunshine or dancing in the rain. Sprinkle me with fairy dust so I can fly away. Smiling
Wow, I'm going to stop it there. Well, for all the people, gentlemen, that have joined so much, and even on the I want to say, have a beautiful day. Please look after yourself. Remember, if you look after yourself, you can look after anybody. And smile often. And keep on dancing. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye
Thanks,
bye.
Denise.